He is, among other things, the little dragon, the gift, and whoa, what was that?
My washing rack just fell down. Let me go put that back up. We'll start one more time.
And our guest this week is, amongst other things, a man who has a career spanning 3 decades. He is the little dragon, the gift, the Bombay and Bollywood dream. He once advanced to the finals of the TNA British Boot Camp, where he wrestled alongside the notorious Richard Parliament. And according to Cage Match, he has amassed a total of 201 victories across his entire career, as well as 317 losses. He has also wrestled for companies as prestigious as Progress, Lucha Britannia, Defiant, and FWA. He is a fierce protector and defender of the DDT as a genuine finisher, and he's retired more times than Mick Foley and Ric Flair combined. This is the King. This is RJ Singh. Welcome to the podcast, RJ.
Welcome. I didn't even know some of those facts.
Talk to me about the DDT. Why is it the best finisher on the planet?
Because that's it. It's just because it's the best finisher on the planet. It's an amazing move. It's, you know, the best wrestling moves are the simplest ones. The best wrestling moves are the ones that can be done to any opponent of any size. Doesn't matter what. You can kind of hit it almost out of nowhere, which is why, you know, the RKO is so fantastic in the modern era. And why it's such a protected finisher for Randy Orton. Look at the Stone Cold Stunner, one of the best moves in pro wrestling. You know, it can be hit on anyone. And when you track back to what's the original move out of nowhere, it was the DDT. Beautifully executed by Jake Roberts, beautifully executed by Arn Anderson. Props to Raven as well for the even flow DDT. 3 guys all knew how to use the DDT really well. So yeah, I will defend the DDT to my death.
I remember seeing Arn Anderson do the spine buster when I was photographing ringside for AEW, and I got goosebumps because it was just so smooth and perfect. And the other thing I saw today was Bret Hart sell the stunner early on, and it wasn't like you'd sell the stunner now, where everyone does their best to sort of like audition for the acrobatics team. It was a proper jolt back of the neck, and he just went flat.
I quite loathe modern stunner cells because they are so over the top, like so ridiculous. Whereas you look at the early ones, like all that run of the early when he first introduced the stunner, it looked really gritty. Like the way it was sold by people like, you know, Mark Merrow taking it, Bret Hart, like Mick Foley as well. It looked much grittier as a finish. So yeah, I love those.
Portrait of a Wrestler, we invite guests like you, prestigious guests like you, on board to talk about their 3 favorite images. One from any era of wrestling, one from their own career of wrestling, and then just their favorite photograph from anywhere. But we start, as we always start, RJ, with your first promo picture. Talk to me about this.
I couldn't actually, slight backstory here. I couldn't actually find my very first portrait. And as you can probably tell, this was taken on, it was probably a disposable camera, probably taken on a disposable, printed out. So this is a digital screenshot of a photo, because that's kind of what we did back then, and people would just kind of scan those in and make posters out of them. And it's funny you mentioning about FWA and looking back at some of the graphics for FWA. When I looked back at the graphics for FWA, a lot of the time actually it was just the names of the wrestlers, guy number 1 versus guy number 2, but it wouldn't actually be their pictures. It would just be like a generic show graphic with their names rather than photos. So there just wasn't a lot of time. Like, you go to virtually any show now, a photographer has been hired to take promo pictures, to take ringside pictures, etc., etc. That wasn't so much the case back then. Your photos would either be taken from one of those action shots, or it would be a screen grab from one of the videos of the show. They'd film the videos, they'd take a screen grab of that, and they'd stick that on the poster as well. So yeah, and so when I backtracked over as earlier photos as I could find, this is one that crept up, and so I would have been about 20 or 21, I think, in this photo, about 9 stone, about 9 stone in weight, I think. Had lovely head of hair, which sadly doesn't exist anymore. And fresh face and baby face. So yeah, but this was definitely around sort of second year of me wrestling. I think this was around there. So it would have been about sort of 2002, 2003.
9 stone with the waistcoat, 8 stone without, I think.
and the wrist tape as well.
Okay, so we're going to move on now to your first photo. It's a photograph from your career as a professional wrestler. This is your favorite photograph from your career as a professional wrestler. And it's one from later on in your career, and it has a special guest. Let's talk about this one.
This one's again, you can tell by my hair that this is actually very recent. This was taken in September of 2023 at Pro Wrestling East. I got brought into Pro Wrestling East. They contacted me and said, you know, we're having a tournament to crown our very first men's champion. We'd really like you to be in the tournament. And there was lots of chopping and changing due to wrestlers getting injured. And so I ended up in the tournament finals, became the first Pro Wrestling East men's champion, which is always fantastic. You know, at the ripe age of sort of 41, it's always great to be a company's first champion. And Jasmine was there that night. My wife and other members of our family were there, so it was a really fantastic occasion. She came in the ring with me at the end. I sort of held the belt up. She came in the ring with me, and so I did all the shows for Pro Wrestling East last year as well. And this was the September show, and I had Jasmine with me that day as well. And she was coming to watch the show, and I said to her, you know, would you mind if, you know, she does the entrance with me? Because the little title belt she's holding, I collected that years ago. It's like a miniature sort of child-sized belt, and I've had that for years. I can't remember where I got it from. I think it was eBay or something. And I gave it to Jasmine recently because she was like, "Oh, Daddy, you've got a belt," and I was like, "Oh, look, I found this. You know, found it back of the cupboard." And she's like, "Oh, I've got a belt just like you." So, you know, I kind of planned to do this entrance with her. So I got her a T-shirt made, the RJ Singh, his awesome Lego T-shirt. And I said to her, you know, oh, you're going to come out with me, and you know, we're going to walk around. And you can see the video. The video's on YouTube now. If you go to the Pro Wrestling East YouTube channel, you can see the entrance in its entirety. And I think just what's incredible is that she is not phased in the slightest. She comes out on cue. She runs out, pop her on my shoulder. She lifts the belt up, and then we walk around the crowd. She's high-fiving people. We get in the ring. I sort of got down on my knees, lifted my belt up. She lifted her belt up at the same time. It was incredible. So, you know, and I put this on Twitter recently. Actually, that was probably my highlight of 2023 in wrestling was just having that moment, and then for it to be captured on photograph as well. I think it was tremendous. It's honestly, in wrestling, it's become one of my most treasured photos.
It's really lovely. Do you know what? I love the little, like, I get technical on these like a little bit, but I love the Dutch angle on it. I love the slightly skewness of it because there's lots of little triangles working within that shot. But the look you're giving her and the look she's giving you down there with that belt above her head, it's just so adorable. And as any parent, like, can't help but fall in love with these sort of images that express connection between one parent and their child. I just think it's really, really lovely. It's such a lovely choice. And I also, obviously, Lego T-shirt, extra marks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of my favorite pieces of merchandise. I think that's probably like the best selling T-shirt. I mean, I didn't have loads of T-shirts across my wrestling career, but that was probably the best selling one of all of them. And I mean, the Dealy Boppers, I don't know where she got those from, but she just decided she was going to wear them on her head, and she comes out and they're just boinging away at the same time. So I think it just added to it as well. That's
your favorite image from your career. Now we're going to look at your favorite image from all of wrestling. I'm going to take you back to 1990, where I believe you were 11. I think I was 12. WrestleMania 6. And this, here we go.
I love this photo for so many reasons. So this is the era of wrestling I grew up in, the Hulkamania era. I was a huge fan of the Ultimate Warrior because the guy was quite literally a superhero come to life. I mean, the face paint and the colourful outfit, and the fact that, you know, he hugely muscular, had a physique unlike most other wrestlers at the time. So, you know, he basically looked like a superhero. And, you know, he'd come charging to the ring, he'd smash the bad guy, he's off again. So as a child watching it, immediately, the Ultimate Warrior was my favourite wrestler as a kid. I just felt like, I think this is such a significant moment. At the time, it was kind of that passing of the torch moment where Hulk Hogan, you know, relinquished the championship and was doing the handover to the next guy. But I think the build-up, and I love the WrestleMania poster, the video box cover for this event, because you've just got Hulk Hogan on one side, and he's got the WWF Winged Eagle, which is my favourite championship. And then on the other side, you've got the Ultimate Warrior holding the WWF Intercontinental Championship, the classic one again, which is my second favourite wrestling championship. Those are my two favourite wrestling championships. And you know, it's never been repeated since. We've never had the Intercontinental Champion, which was always seen as the next guy. The next guy coming up in the WWF was the Intercontinental Champion. We've never since had that main event of WrestleMania. We've got the Intercontinental Champion versus the Heavyweight Champion, winner takes all. And it hasn't been done since. We've never had that since. And I think, just this image of Ultimate Warrior having won the match, holding up both belts. And it was interesting. It's something you would probably pick up on as well. And someone mentioned this to me the other day, and I hadn't realised it. In modern day wrestling, you don't get the flash bulbs as much anymore. Because everyone's on their phone, you don't get the flash bulbs that you used to get from older cameras. And actually, I think there's something really magical if you go back and watch pro wrestling from the late 80s into the early 90s, etc. When big moments in wrestling happened and those flash watch old wrestling, and you'll see exactly what I mean. It's a really special moment when you see like 100,000 flashbulbs go off at once, and that's what would have been happening at this point. Fireworks go off, and you just see that new champion crowned, which is what WrestleMania is all about. That WrestleMania main event is generally about that crowning of a new champion, and again, it's a special moment which hasn't been repeated since. And I just love this photo.
A few things to pick up on that. The flashbulb thing does replicate itself in modern day wrestling. I think like most recently happened when I was in attendance at AEW when Sting and Darby Allin came in, all of the lights on the phones go off. But you're absolutely right, that pop of flash for the moment, that moment where he climbs the turnbuckle. And the reason why flashbulbs look so distinctive from that era is because of the technology of the video cameras as opposed to the still cameras. The technology of the lenses within the video cameras created that sort of X that you see when the flashbulbs to the mid-90s and late 90s of signs. That's how people could see they were on TV or had a record that they were on TV because they held up a sign. These days, they're all doing their own blogs and Instagram stories as a record that they were there. What I like about this is it's premeditated, the shot, because the photographer is elevated on a long lens, which means there's huge distance between the crowd behind him and Warrior in the foreground, but there's nothing else in the foreground. So they've obviously they've told Warrior at the end, you need to go over there so that our stills guy can capture it. You can see the crowd in the background, but they're not a distraction. Great expression on the face, because I remember this match because his face paint sort of wore off as the match went on. Yeah. Love the yellow strap. Oh, I love color changing. I love the white strap on the IC belt, and I love the yellow strap on the IC belt. I think that dates it and in a really, really nice, positive way. Winged Eagle, you're right, is the best WWF belt. Synonymous with Brett and Shawn, really.
Definitely.
But you say that the IC and the world champion have never met in the main event of WrestleMania again. God bless him, Roman Reigns has got about half a dozen storylines going into this WrestleMania, but wouldn't it be nice to see Walter versus Roman Reigns?
There you go.
Main event of WrestleMania, That's how you build it up, and that's how you do it. Absolutely. But I think, like I say, there's loads of color coordination in this. It's a great shot, and it's a shot that a lot of people will remember of that era of wrestling. Like I say, I was 12, and so in school I remember talking to my friend who had Sky, and we spoke. I remember two conversations distinctly. He came in running into school one day saying Hulk Hogan lost the championship because Ric Flair came to the ring with a steel chair and Undertaker's tombstoned him on it.
Yeah.
And in my mind's eye, that was the most amazing bit of theatre, and I've watched it since, and it isn't. And this as well, the fact that he was getting so excited in the 3 months build up to WrestleMania that this match was going to happen, and he had no idea going into it who was going to win, because he just knew that they were both superheroes, as you alluded to. They've made him look like a superhero.
Yeah. And I think, as you've said, even though the crowd is almost darkened out behind him, and he's such a pop of colour, the way he's lit, again with the colourful outfit, I just love the fact that he takes your eye completely. It's just, as you said, the crowd aren't distracting in this photo; he's completely absorbing your eye. I think it's stunning. I think as soon as you said a wrestling photo, sort of from any, this is just instantly the image that came in my head. I didn't even have to think very hard about this one. I went, it's the picture of, and there was a similar one where he's just in the ring holding them up, and I think the fireworks are going off behind him, which is equally great. But I think this one just stands out a little bit more. So it's a great photo.
I think Hulk's probably refusing to leave the ring in that one in the ring. So we move on to your final photograph. This can be from anywhere. It could be from wrestling. It could be from your career. It could be outside of wrestling. You've chosen, as so many people do on this, you've chosen family. Let's have a look at this. Talk to me through this one.
So this was taken by Oli Sandler. who came and photographed the event. And this is Jasmine's baptism. My wife, Laura, in the photo as well, holding Jasmine, is Catholic. So she wanted to get Jasmine baptized. And so this is our local Catholic church. It's the same church we got married in. We kind of hadn't got Jasmine's sleep right that day. And she was actually very, very tired, very grouchy, and cried through most of the baptism. We actually have this as a canvas hanging up in our living room, this photo. I just loved the sort of the tenderness of this moment. Aside from me, where you get the majority of my face, my face is partially covered, Laura's face is covered, Jasmine's face, but I feel like you don't need to see all of our faces to understand the intimacy of what's happening in this photo. And actually it's two parents who've got a couple of hundred people on the other side with a crying child, and this is two parents just trying to calm her and soothe her to kind of get through the rest of this ceremony. I think it's just captured as such a tender moment. I love the way Laura's sort of hand is on the back of Jasmine's head, just propping her head up. Obviously I've taken her hand and I'm kissing her hand just to give her that moment of comfort. I think the beauty of the photo is you wouldn't know it's the moment of a crying child. It just looks like a tender moment between two loving parents and their child. And I really like my hair then as well. So that was another reason why it's great. So it's the last time my hair looked great. The church itself, so beautiful. You can probably tell from the background. It's got this really beautiful altar, really colourful and beautiful and things like that. So I think that as a backdrop is also, really lovely. But it's definitely, it's just the tenderness of the photo. I just absolutely adore it. I think it's such a wonderful representation of us as a family.
I agree. That's the power of print as well. The fact that you've chosen to put it on the wall means that you look at it every day, which means it has value, and it will continue to have more value as an investment. It will have more value as it goes older. There's real tenderness in this shot. There's real protection in this shot. What you've done there is you've created a safe space in this, stressful environment. And I don't think I've ever been at a christening or a baptism where the kid has been at the perfect time to have their head wet. It's always on nap time. Weddings are the same. People get married at 1 o'clock. Well, that's toddler's nap time. Like, they've been trained for their entire life to nap at that time. You're wondering why they're grumpy. But I think that it's, like you said, it's sweet, it's tender, it's personal. You don't need to see people's faces to see the love, care, and affection in this shot. And it's actually from the point of view of Oli's point of view, this is a photographer's shot, and a lot of inexperienced photographers would have got rid of this one, or wouldn't have even taken it in the first place, because they wouldn't have seen value in not seeing it. He's seen from his personal relationship with you as well. He's seen something in this that is of value, and is going to stand the test of time. And I think it's absolutely stunning. What a lovely, lovely choice. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Welcome.
So, how many times are you going to retire this year?
I'm not actually going to retire any times this year. I'm kind of saving it for the big retirement, somewhere in 2026, I reckon. I don't know. Whenever I hit 40, when do I hit 45? I think I hit 45 in 2026. So maybe at 45, that's when I'll jack it.
How much value? Because I was in the ballroom as a fan when you had your match against Styx, and I recently went back on the YouTube channel to relive that, the entrance especially, and it was such a good entrance. It doesn't come across quite, it comes across on the YouTube video, but not as much as it was being a fan, at ringside of that, and just seeing this, because it was an entrance that was so different to everything else on the show. Loads of color, loads of involvement from the fans to get involved. How much did that match mean to you?
It was perfect. For me personally, that was if I was Stephen King, that was my Dark Tower. That was the best thing I think I've ever done in terms of. The only regret I have is that we didn't build it up over several shows. I wish we'd had a bit more time with Progress to build that match up a bit more. It basically happened within one show, chapter 13, I think it was 13. No, 6, that was 16. Chapter 15. The build-up happened at chapter 15. The match took place at chapter 16. Now, I think it's a testament to the quality of what happened at chapter 15 that we made it work in. This is what's happened. One show later, it will be this huge match with this huge outcome. The work that me and Paul did to kind of make that work, I think it's testament to how well it went. I wish we'd had a bit longer though. But then to do that, to kind of speak to Progress Management and for them to say, should we go really big with this? And I was like, okay, what are you thinking? And they said, well, I've got in touch. It was Glenn. I think Glenn knew this Bollywood dance company, and said, yeah, we can get a couple of Bollywood dancers. I said, oh well, I know some wrestlers with brown faces, and of the like, we can talk to them. Perhaps they can, if you're happy for me, I'm going to see if I can just get them in the entrance to kind of fill the numbers up and things like that. So Progress like, yeah, go for it. We'll do it like that, and we'll see how it goes. So I think it was one of the things we only really rehearsed it once. I kind of gave general direction to all the wrestlers and people who come out on stage, and of course, like Roy Johnson's in that crowd, Ginny was in that crowd as well of people who came out with me, and we kind of just talked through it really, and then we had a rough idea what the dance was going to be with the 4 dancers in the ring, and then we just kind of went for it, and literally we just did it on the night. And I just think it looks fantastic. I watched it back recently, and I still think it looks fantastic. I still think it looks like, for a British independent wrestling show, I think it's a heck of an entrance. And it was perfect. If that really had been my last match, and I really had retired at that point for definite 100%, that would have been the perfect send off. And I don't think I'll get one as good as that ever again. I'll never get a good. So I've always said, when I'm done, I'm just going to quietly just disappear and not say anything, because I don't think I can't top that. I can't top that finish. And that match again, which was with Styx, who are literally, in terms of wrestling, I grew up with in wrestling, and we'd started our careers together. We'd been up and down the country together. We wrestled dozens and dozens of times, and just it was the perfect opponent. When I was thinking about it, there was only 3 wrestlers at the time. I thought, yeah, it could only be those 3 wrestlers who I'd contemplated, and obviously Styx just was really at the top of that list of it has to be Styx, and yeah, it was perfect. And the match itself, I just loved the match. Looking back on that with great fondness as well, I think we hit the story pitch perfect. And again, just two shows, and I thought we told a great story.
Yeah, I love seeing Roy Johnson in that entrance, because he's the most reserved guy who doesn't like putting himself out there at all like that, and he just looks so uncomfortable. I love it. I think that's my favorite thing. Where can people find you on the internet if you want that?
That's it. I can be found on Twitter, which is RJ Singh is King, and then on Instagram with King RJ Singh, because someone on Instagram already took RJ Singh is King, and for no reason, so I had to use that one instead.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for giving us your time. It's been wonderful to look back and reminisce, and I wish you well for the year going ahead.